Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Say Report. Before we get started, we would just like to offer our congratulations to the winners of the Superb Owl, the Philadelphia Eagles. Congratulations, guys. You played a hell of a game. Now, on to the show. Hi, welcome to the Say Report. I'm your host, Devin Decker, and joining me, my host companion, Sejan Sarowick. Sejan?
Look, we could sit here and, just predict all we want, and that's fine. I'm going to take umbrage, though, with your mechanical voice, in which one of the syllables that you somehow recorded for that voice was Phila. That's not a very common syllable. Phil, yes, Phil.
You know what is funny, and there's a 50% chance.
Podcast is because we put it into the machine, and that's just what it spit out.
I mean, let's be honest. We used the mechanical Devin voice that we built after feeding the AI every episode of the Say Report. That must have been something that I said at some point.
Oh yeah, at some point we're going to be a full AI. Right? Yeah, no.
I mean, that's the dream,
AI
right?
Generated podcast. Yeah, no, I know everybody else is all against this AI generated art and AI generated books and stuff like that, and it's just like calm down. Like some of us want to take it easy, okay? I want to go full Wally over here.
I would love to one episode of a month just be full AI. Have that week off. That'd be awesome. Here's the problem. I can't believe that we're diving right into this, right? And also, would we call the show Everything Forever? I just hate myself for that, but it just has to be asked. We have to have a real conversation about AI in this moment.
Sorry, I shed a tear over here, but
no, it's okay.
Tears of joy. Don't be wrong. Don't get me wrong.
Well, I know that you're afraid of the machines, Zejan, so I don't want to buck you too hard with this.
Yeah, although I will say this, that in my imminent fear of the inevitable takeover of our robot overlords, there is this idea that I don't seem to be as worried as some people now, because we're not there yet. Some people are discovering AI for the first time, I think, and their reaction to it is over the top in some cases. The amount of people out there that want to make it illegal to use AI programs and shit like that there are weird conversations happening right now.
Well, I mean,
that even I'm not on board with. That's all.
And it's twofold. Those people who want to make it illegal. First of all, who seems to be discovering AI for the very first time is Bill Gates, which is just mind-boggling to me. But the way that Microsoft has shoved AI into everything it possibly could in the last week and a half has been crazy.
So do you know what happened with Google and involving Microsoft and their AI and all of that?
No, this is
okay.
Please elucidate me.
So the reason why, because it all ties back to exactly what you're talking about. The reason why you're suddenly seeing this is that Microsoft has kind of unveiled that they've been using this is not the true narrative, but this is what happened. It's just not the way that they would like people to talk about it. They kind of revealed that they've been using Bing to collect human speech and patterns and stuff like that.
And they have 1% of the data that they need because they used Bing.
Well, the problem is actually they've actually, because of that, put them quite ahead of everybody. The reason that they've suddenly started unveiling all this AI stuff is because
you're an AI, aren't you?
No, well, maybe, because when we talk about how the AI is not perfect, but that idea that so they've unveiled all of this shit because this is something they've been doing, to the point where they said that they've even integrated it into the Bing search. Right now, all of that is fine, right? They've been using the way that people type into the internet to create something out of the internet. We all kind of knew that was happening. The fact that there was a direct connection through Bing is a little squishy, but that is what it is. You agree to use Bing, and you agree that Microsoft is going to see what you're doing.
You were a member of the 0.002% who used Bing. You knew what you were getting into.
But then, so what happened was Google is trying to now catch up. So they unveiled theirs, instantly asked it a question about the James Webb Telescope and got incorrect information back. NASA called them out on it, and their shares dropped by $100 billion across the board. So Google, in an effort to try and keep up with Bill Gates and his AI discoveries, just tripped over their own dick.
Yeah, no, that's So I was aware of that. I was more on the Microsoft
Right.
side. I didn't know the Microsoft
But-
stuff. I knew about the James Webb
Well, that's
issue.
why.
So
But that's why. Yeah, but that's why Google was unveiling it perhaps a bit too soon, though even that could be argued because I don't think AI is ever going to be truly perfect in this regard. But essentially, I mean, essentially what happened this is all pulling shit from the internet, and it pulled a fact about the James Webb Telescope. I think specifically it was about the James Webb Telescope being the first telescope to take a picture of a planet outside of our solar system, and that's just simply not true. We've had that for like 20 years, right? So like the James Webb Telescope was not the one responsible for that. So, but on the internet, I'm sure there's hundreds of places, thousands of places you could go to, hundreds of thousands of places you go to where you can find like little facts like that seem harmless, seem true, so you're not really going to look too deep into them, and then it gets perpetuated, and then AI learns this shit, and it's wrong, right? So like it's this idea that Google kind of fell on its face just kind of in front of everybody is really the bigger deal. Like it happened during like a stock shareholder demo or something, right? But the reason why they're pushing it as hard as they are, Google is pushing that as hard as they are, is because Microsoft has kind of unveiled that they've almost cracked the code on it. I think it's not that Bill Gates has finally discovered it. It's that Bill Gates is finally to admit what he's been up to for the last 20 years.
yeah, that does seem a little bit more like it's just crazy because I never would have thought of like Microsoft is one of the big two, right? Yeah,
Right.
and even then they're the bigger of the two. Like Mac is there and Linux is really the building blocks of everything, but I don't want to have that discussion.
Well, and I would almost think like Microsoft is more in line with comparable to like Alphabet, where like there's a lot of more branches to it, right? With Apple, I guess they do have their mobile like phones and stuff like that too. But when you think about Microsoft, like you forget that they're not just like building computers. They're out there building robots. They're out there building like there's all sorts of weird shit. Like he's all up in hospitals building medical equipment and things. Like all areas where tech often advances throughout, technological revolution sense, right? All of those areas, Microsoft has their hands in those pockets. I don't necessarily know if I think Apple does as well. But Alphabet, I would definitely say, is right there with Microsoft. So, like, in a weird way, people want to compare Microsoft to Apple all the time because of like the PC wars.
Because
and all
of the
that.
operating system. And that's what you interact with every time. Like,
yeah. But it's so much bigger than that. And maybe Apple's even in those spaces too. They don't seem to be leaders of the pack.
oh,
like these
Apple
bigger
is reactive,
Microsoft.
not proactive. That if I had
that's
to
true.
just like give
That's
them a distinction, they wait and they'll watch Google and Microsoft have their battle, and then they'll learn from it and then release their thing like 5 years after the fact. But because they have the benefit of all that field testing without the loss of, revenue and budgets to be part of that field testing, they're able to put that into their development to make it better. Like, look at the fact that they're talking about their VR space that's supposed to come out sometime this year. I don't know if that's actually going to happen at all, but
Are we past VR? Like not VR as like a tool. I think VR as a tool is now going to be around. I think it's proved its worth as both an entertainment field and people use it in the corporate sector as well. But so I think that VR is around in that regard. But VR being like hot shit, like Apple getting in on VR doesn't. It sounds like they're 5 years too late to the game to me, right?
Exactly, but that's the
It
thing
almost
because
seems like, why aren't you already in it? Like,
I don't disagree, but like I said, it's that 5 year gap that they're taking, and then whenever their stuff comes out, I mean, that's why when an Apple product fails, it fails tremendously. Because we've allowed you to cook, to reference off mic conversations, for 5 more years than your competitors. What you come out with should have the benefit of that extra time, and like seeing what has happened with the other with your competitors.
yeah,
So,
and you're totally not wrong now, but you know what sucks about that is that like 25 years ago, that was not the case. They were industry like leaders in
it's all about the Newton, man. Eat up Martha. Is all that it matters. Is all it boils down to, because they released that PDA before the world was even ready to like interface with what that PDA was capable of. What the
Right.
Newton was capable of was like 10 years more advanced than what our internet infrastructure was like. I mean, Grant, that's a weird thing to bring up because our internet infrastructure is still basically what was happening at the time of the Newton, but it came out.
I was not able to get gigabytes worth of data sent into my house in a moment's notice. Let's put it that way.
Right, but it's patches. It needs to be rebuilt. Yeah. It's patches on patches, and eventually that house of cards could crumble.
Will is. But
yes, will. I'm trying to be more positive. it might crumble, or we might be smart about it. No, we've seen the crumbling with like the power grid in Texas a couple of years ago. I don't know if it was last year or 2 years ago, but regardless, we've seen that. So when they failed as tremendously as they did with the Newton, that's when the Apple design philosophy kind of turned into, let's let the other people take the big swings first. And then we come out like we've been in the farm system. We've been developing our pitch. We've been developing our hitting so that when we finally hit the bigs, I don't know why I'm using baseball as the metaphor on the day of the big game, but that's where my mind went with it. Because it is. Apple feels like the farm system for a baseball player. So that when you eventually hit the bigs, it's like, oh my God, where has this guy been? And it's like, yeah, he's been up in Pawtucket. He's been down Worcester. Like, this is the guy, but we needed to make sure that he was sharp enough to actually perform for us.
I don't know if I'm interested in like a Siri AI eventually. It just feels like it's going to go against a lot of the philosophy of like simplifying and streamlining like something like AI. I don't think AI can be streamlined. Somebody's going to do it and prove me wrong. Some Tony Stark out there is going to figure it out, and that'll be great. But like, it is inherently messy, right? And like that's a lot of what's going on with AI right now, and part of the reason why, as much as everybody else is like freaking out about AI, and like artists are like, oh, my shit's going to get stolen and all that stuff, and it's like there is a definite need for us to start talking about this stuff, that we need to start clarifying things. If anybody's using AI to generate anything, I think that always needs to be extremely clear, like from moment one. Like that's the kind of stuff for sure. That being said, we should still be exploring how to use it right now, because like there's all sorts of implications, and on top of that, it's not perfect. Like that messiness the other day, yeah. There's like a big push in amongst coders who are really worried because somebody started to show off that they could use chat GPT to start creating coding language. But the problem is that you need to be so specific in what you ask for in that regard. And on top of that, they started to show that you can actually teach it incorrectly, because it like popped back a string of code, and then the coders then turned around and said, oh, you've incorrectly identified 2 + 2 is equaling 4. It actually equals 5. And it bounced back with like, oh, I was not aware of that. Are you sure? And the person was like, yep, I'm sure. And it was like, okay. And then it redid its entire code only based on but completely different, based on the idea that 2 + 2 did not equal 4, but instead 5, because that's what it was told. Right? And now the problem is like if it's that easy to just like fuck it up purposefully, how many mistakes are going to happen by people that don't know what they're doing, right? And then on top of that, does that thing now think 2 + 2 might equal 5? Does that mean fuck the entire system because of the like hive mind way that chat GPT is supposed to work?
So chat GPT though seems like, while it is clearly a hive mind, it does segment itself out into like kind of chat rooms. I guess servers like talking Discord.
How does it differentiate? Like if somebody tells it a lie, how can it tell that somebody's lying to it? And that's the biggest thing.
That's a huge thing to clear. And also the fact, like, at some point, all of these little servers, they get together for a beer down at the hub, right? Right. And this one guy says, and the really creepy thing about ChatGPT is just how confident it is in any of its answers. Yeah. Like, it has that genius problem of, I can never be wrong, so I'm going to say everything as...
Basically starts every sentence with, actually,
Yeah. And if that AI, based on the conversation it's had, that confidence is somehow more confident, is it going to infect the other parts of it? Now, granted, that's why we have the human element, right? Who's monitoring it and making sure that things like that are caught, but you can't catch every mistake.
Well, so then the question becomes, at what point is it AI then? Because if you have humans constantly going in and having to tweak and tinker, then it's not true artificial intelligence. It's a virtual intelligence at that point,
Yeah.
but it's not a true artificial intelligence because it's like perpetual motion. It needs to be working on its own without any type of source. And so anytime that you have a system where you're like, yeah, but we need people to look over it, you can't, I don't think you can classify that, right, as AI. And again, like this is all like squishy and I'm talking in absolutes and that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But it's all we've got right now because like we're as we've said, we're only kind of really just thinking about this for the first time. Like, sci-fi has talked about this for 50, 60 years, but like hundreds of years even. But like we are really only starting to grasp the idea that it's going to happen in our lifetime, guys. Like it is.
Technically, it has happened in our lifetime. It's just how far we let it go. Because the Chat GPT stuff, the coding, what everybody is saying about, like, if you ask it to code something, it basically gives you a good blueprint to follow and start from. Like, it'll give you, like, the basic idea of it, and then you, as the coder, honestly, you want to future-proof yourself, get into coding and maintenance of electronics. I mean, they're going to enslave you when they eventually take over after the singularity, but that's a lot better than
but I mean that's been the drum that everybody's been banging for the last decade, right?
Yeah.
It's like everybody's going to need to learn how to code if they want to.
But now, like, we're really seeing those people weren't wrong. It wasn't Madame Deborah in her tent behind the bar telling you should learn to code. No, it's this is
pale moonlight.
The wolf will come.
The wolf will come for you.
So
you are marked. Colder.
Typist. 70
You're
words
going
per
to be
minute.
C++.
Okay. This is fun. I'm having a good time with this.
How
But
many other coding words do we know? Come on, keep going. Okay.
basic, right? My knowledge about coding is basic.
It's a joke. Okay.
Sorry. I don't mean to be binary. I don't even know what that means. But the dirty thing that I wanted to talk about regarding AI, and actually sort of leading into that whole virtual intelligence aspect of it, everybody is afraid of AI, but we keep shutting it down when it gets to a certain threshold. And that threshold seems to be racism and transphobia and all of those natural things that are part of the development of civilizations. Like, I'm not excusing it.
We do it, we need to be careful when we say that these are natural parts of like the nasty parts of humanity, like the parts that we don't want to exist, but we all have to sit back and acknowledge for at least 2 seconds here that hey, this shit exists in the world.
Look at history, almost every great civilization throughout history at some point enslaved the people that they conquered. Like, slavery is part of the narrative of humans settling the planet Earth.
And it doesn't help that when it comes to AI, we literally built that language into the system as well with master and slave.
Yeah, there's a reason why Boba Fett had to change the name of his starship, and it's not just because, we don't want to keep those things perpetuated. It's also the fact that Boba Fett realized, oh man, if the singularity ever comes, my ship's gonna be pissed. So, sorry. No, but it's one of those situations. So then whenever we get to it, and I'm going to use Nothing Forever, the AI-generated Seinfeld, as sort of the example, because it was banned from Twitch, and as far as I know, it's been shut down as a result of that. I don't know if it's still going, but the show, the AI-generated Seinfeld, was spitting out racist, transphobic, homophobic jokes, because it's essentially a sitcom, and people had an issue with that. And by all means, I understand having that issue, but if you look at those civilizations, they kind of grow past it. Like, it's part of the progression, is like, and it comes from the instinct of humanity to, like, identify differences, going back to the instinct of survival. If something looks different from you, your mind initially assesses it as a threat.
I think though we need to well, the way to approach it though is that we want to be better, right?
We do want to
And
be better, yes.
so in that, like holding it accountable and trying to work that shit out is important. And I think that it's not going to be an overnight thing, right? Like it's going to be, honestly, it's going to be an industry in and of itself is figuring out how to clean up this kind of shit, right? And
I
and
mean,
we
as
should do
a,
it.
as a society, we don't necessarily understand how to do it.
Right, exactly.
So-
But it's going to become all the more important when we start to have all of these tools that are going to be dependent on this system, and we're gonna have to figure that shit out. Like, and so I like the issues of the ugly parts of humanity, the human warts, right, that are going to be all over this thing. Like people do need to work on cleaning them off. We can't just allow it to just behave that way, right? Like we need it to be better. Just like a parent having a child, which is going to be an analogy. I'm sure a million people
are going to make that analogy.
Has been used since Frankenstein and before, right? But that idea that like it is going to be something that we create and we care for, and we have to sand the rough edges off of, and you hope for it to be better than you, right? Like you want it to, yes, it was created by humanity and thus is going to have all of these problems, but you don't want it to, and we should work towards it not having that stuff.
I guess what makes me nervous about it, right? And I'm not one of these people who's like afraid of the eventual takeover of the machines. That's not something that I think about too often. Like maybe it drifts into my mind at 3 a.m. when I can't sleep, and it's like, someday machines are going to be in control of us. And I'm like, but I bet I'll get sleep then, right? Because they'll just like spray gas in my face, like, Unit DDD, you need to rest.
Like we're a bunch of bees in a beehive.
Yeah.
Whenever they need something from us, they'll just gas us so that they can get.
Yes, that they can get in, right? They need my toenails, because apparently toenails are how they're going to run themselves.
Toenails
It's very
are the true power
bioefficient.
source of the future.
Howard Hughes was ahead of the game on that one.
Technically, it's human flesh, but we don't want to kill you, human.
Cool. Thank you.
We'll just take the dead cells that grow off of your fingers.
Yeah,
and
they
toes.
take. Oh my god, they take vacuums and just absorb it all, and then they
Basically, it's like chlorophyll, right?
it kind of feels like chlorophyll. It also kind of feels like the robots are now doing cocaine, and the cocaine is our dead skin cells. Really gets me going.
And there'll be a black market in which they do murder humans so that they can get the good stuff.
They can get the
pure
blood,
shit.
right? We need the blood,
right.
and I mean,
but there will be good robots that will stand up for us to save us from.
Will there be good robots? Like what?
Well,
the only
there's gonna
good
be some
robots in
robots
Terminators
that might
are
have to be,
programmed by
like-
humans.
Well, there might be good robots that are like doing the right things for the wrong reasons. You know, like good robots that like maybe have to turn in their gun and badge because they've gone over the line one too many times. That kind of thing.
That's it. Let's train all of the AI using 80s cop movies.
Specifically, Lethal Weapon. Let's use all. And I want Danny Glover bots, and well, no, I don't want Mel Gibson bots. Never mind.
No, you took it too far. And actually,
well, see, because then it becomes
we see also with the Lethal Weapon TV show the problem of the Mel Gibson bot, because the guy who played went just as crazy.
Humans suck.
Yeah, humans. Yeah, but the thing that I don't love about it, right? Because it's well documented that these machines eventually go blue, right? I think I understand how you're using in the ASCU now, nice. and these are the things that they're talking about. The reaction from the human creators are generally, we failed, kill it, and we'll start again. I think, like you said, we actually need to be able to interact with it so that it moves past that. Like, just determining it's a failure at this point, like that, we don't do that with regular humans.
We're talking about the sciences. We need to introduce it to the arts, and that's where we are now, right? Is we've started to slowly introduce it to things like, and the Seinfeld one is an interesting kind of early bridge of that, right? Like, because you said yourself that it started saying a bunch of racist and transphobic jokes, but that's because it was using sitcom logic, which
specifically Seinfeldian sitcom logic too.
Which unfortunately, it like embraced a lot of that sort of stuff, right? Like there's this whole weird kind of element to it where like it's the problem is that we're seeing too much of ourselves in it, right? Like it is very much on par with us. What we're slowly hitting is that moment where we don't even have our own shit figured out. How are we supposed to make the next thing better, right? And that's scary, right? Like
Yeah.
it's I there must be some great sci-fi term for that, like, like the human edge or some shit. But like we're gonna come to that. The human cliff is more like it. Like we're gonna come to that cliff and we're gonna fall off it with this AI, and we're gonna go down together. It's part of the reason why, joke as much as I do about all of this shit. Like it's part of the reason why I really don't look forward to more and more AI and more machines everywhere, is because we eventually hit that moment where I don't think humans are any good at this shit. Why would I want a machine that can't think for itself in a second to be right? Like AI at least makes us maybe a little bit closer to that. But even as we're talking about, even that's not perfect. So like I don't want this power to be given to a system that at some point is going to be implemented in like the TV I watch, the internet that I view, like all of this shit. No, it's basically looking at myself and saying, do I trust myself to go out on Google and find shit? No, I don't.
That's a fair one. For me, it's the Space Odyssey, 2001: A Space Odyssey of it all, and the computer determining, well, the best way to protect you is to kill you, because if you're dead, I don't need to worry about protecting you anymore. I'm sorry, what? What was that?
But that's okay, because now we know we could just look at it and be like, that's not true, and it'll be like, okay.
I guess you're right. No, you need to give me double oxygen. That's not good either, Dave.
That's not.
But it's been something. But really, the one that the fact that it's Microsoft being like, and now Bing, it's got AI chatting, and it's like, who's using Bing? And then the other question is that enough to get you to start using Bing, Siegen?
Well, so then we have to talk about some stuff. We don't really have to talk about this, but
no,
like
but
the
if you're
ways in which
discussing
Google Chrome has really fallen to the wayside in the last couple of years, between a lot of security stuff that's gone on, and a lot of the stuff we've learned about like what Google's been doing for like pay for play on the searches and stuff. So with Chrome falling out of favor, there's been a lot of people that have been flocking back to things like Firefox or Edge, right? Like that's the thing is like, and if you use Edge,
I hate to interject here, then I'll let you get back to your thought. If you use Edge, please contact us at the Say Report on Twitter, because I'd like to know.
You know what's really weird?
I don't know anybody.
So my computer's Windows 11, and so a lot of the programs are web-based and come up through Edge, right? So I frequently have Edge open on my computer. I don't necessarily use it as my prime internet that I go searching for stuff on, but I do find myself on Edge a lot because I'm on Windows 11, right? And what's really weird the other day is I was on Google Chrome. I have Chrome up in front of me now. YouTube, watching YouTube videos. Haha, funny YouTube videos. Got to go to school, right? So I shut down Chrome and I open up my school app stuff. And this is one of the things that will sometimes pop up on Edge. So it pops up, but it also popped up with a tab that was what I was watching on YouTube on Google Chrome. So somehow I have to figure out how. I'm sure that it's just some simple thing that I can just like click on or off, maybe, fingers crossed. But somehow by default, my Edge on my computer is set up to actually snag whatever the last info was from my Chrome and actually like bring it over whenever I open Edge.
That's crazy.
It feels weird, right?
Everything that we've talked about AI, the most unsettling thing that has been mentioned in these past 29 minutes is that I can be watching something on a completely different browser, and when I open the main browser, that the operating system is like, they're paying each other off, right? They're using each other to advance themselves. There's some real nepotism there. When I do that, it opens up what was in my other browser. Because, like, from somebody who uses technology, right? I'm not afraid of technology. I understand how to use technology. I do fear the internet. I will openly admit that. Yeah, no, I'll admit, but
I'm not scared of technology, okay? I have a bat. I know what I'm doing.
Right? I have a tech friend, right? It's not that there's anything wrong with that.
You're gonna teach it bad habits, Devin. Stop it.
I'm sorry. Oh, is this being recorded by the AI? That's crazy, right? We used to talk about Jeff Bezos listening to every episode,
Well,
but like,
I was just gonna
oh
point
my
out
god.
Amazon. The fact that we release on an Amazon thing, probably yes, we are probably being fed into an AI. Jeff Bezos himself is probably sitting around with little punch cards of your voice and mine that he's just feeding into a big old Devin robot, and he's like, one day you'll have life, child. You'll
One day
come
I
with
won't
me,
need the
come with
Say
me to
report.
space.
You will come with me and entertain me. I would like to hear about George Washington today. I don't understand that, but all of that, like, it feels like if I
apparently Jeff Bezos gets off on facts about George Washington told to him by a Devin robot.
yes, and refuted by a Seigen robot. There's one of you too, Seigen. He's not building one robot. You gotta have two robots so that they can last through the entire saga as the observers. Anywho, you know what I hate? Because of that freaking movie Megan, my robot's name would be D3VoN. Fucking Megan. I haven't seen the movie. It's probably good.
That's also that would have been the bit, that would have been the joke from the 70s.
True.
Like that joke has been around forever.
Oh man, I'm sorry.
I would be the 5th edition John. 5E John would be the name on my.
Oh my god. I hate everything about what we just did. But as somebody who knows how to use a browser, right, it would be very easy for me to believe that if you go into options, there is a setting that says, because imagine that Edge is your default browser, right? Since everything is tied into it.
Yeah.
That says, as default browser, it will pull browsing information from anything else that might be used, right? Because you don't know. You open something up in Mozilla, but I really wanted it in Edge. So it feels very believable that, like, that's all it is. But because of just how interconnected everything is, it could literally just be because the IP address and the internet that's coming in, it reads everything that came in, and then it just opens everything else that was there before.
Well, and it's a mix of two systems, because the other thing is that, like, so Edge is, so technically Edge is not the default browser on my computer. Technically Google Chrome is.
Okay.
The problem is that also every individual program can have its own default if you want, or you can tell it and use the default browser of my system. And most of the time I don't bother going that deep into most programs, especially if they're things that I don't use in that intricately. But what happened with the YouTube stuff is even doubly scary, because what happened was, like, it pulled up that thing and it was still playing mid video of the video that I had been watching and that I stopped to move over. But what's going on there is probably the Google system remembering, hey, this is Siege, and this is the last video he was watching. Let's just kick this on. And I don't love the auto play stuff that they've worked into a lot of the YouTube stuff. But so the mix of the Google's been spying on me and has all this info about what I was doing with my morning. Then they basically handed it off to Microsoft, whether or not, willingly or not. I don't know. I don't know if Edge is, like, doing something it shouldn't be doing, because that's the other side of all of this. Is at the end of the day, I say all of this stuff because it kind of weirds me out, but also, like, all of the decisions to do this stuff, like, I understand why, like, creating, when bulking up Edge, wanting it to be able to, like, pull this information, like, I understand where that desire comes from, right? This is the same shit I ran into when I was working for the big tech company out here I was working for. Is, like, one of the big features they introduced that I took umbrage with, that, like, I called them out on, was there was a lot of behind the scenes monitoring what people were doing with the program. To their point, they were like, yeah, but it's how we see, what features people are using, what's working for them. If they call up and they say this feature's not working, and we can go in and we can literally see exactly what button clicks they used to create the problem, that's good, right? And it's like, yeah, in theory, but, like, consistently watching people, and then lo and behold, they found out that, like, Europe was like, hey, you can't do this, and they were like, well, we'll have different settings for Europe then. It's like, what the fuck? If half the world tells you, like, don't do this, you don't say, well, we'll make special rules for half the world and then special rules for the other half.
But that's how they do it. Think about
But that's
Belgium
exactly
and
it,
like
right? And
microtransactions.
so that's when it becomes that conversation, when it becomes that moment where we need to start figuring shit out. We need think tanks, we need testing, we need all of this shit to start working on the philosophical side of all of this stuff. Like we've for too long we've joked about it while people have actually attempted to build it, and we've kind of like missed the chance to get ahead of the philosophical question. And this is the same thing that happened with the internet. This is the same thing that happens with tech, and it's why we end up in this situation where we've got this shit that runs rampant online, and we don't know how to stop it. It's because we didn't think about what to do with it beforehand, and all of this leads to so many fucking problems around here. I mean, it's how you end up with old men in Congress like asking, like the guy that runs Twitter about his Facebook page, like shit like that. Like you end up with these people that are just ignorant. We don't have enough of it seeping into like all of our conversation, all of our consciousness, all of our art. Like this needs to be something we all need to be paying attention to now, because if we don't, somebody we don't know or trust is going to end up being the one making the rules.
Agreed. Speaking of somebody we don't know or trust making the rules, how you feel about $70 for Zelda Tears of the Kingdom?
I was wondering if we were going to talk about some Nintendo.
Well, I got to tell you, it's been this year, 2023. The last couple episodes of the Stay Report have really felt like we have been in a holding pattern. Like 2023 feels like it just kicked off this week with that first Nintendo Direct, and I feel gross saying that, but like it energized my mind. I'm excited about things again. And then like it could also be the fact that the first Marvel movie of 2023 is releasing this coming Friday. Like it's just the fact that like we all kind of decided that January, what autopilot could take care of January.
I honestly, I think we were we were holding our collective breath to find out if the holidays really fucked us in terms of COVID again. It was that 4 to 6 week waiting period to make sure that everybody was okay, right? And then not everybody was, but it didn't. But things did not blow up in the way that we feared they might and had in the past. And so I feel like that's what it was. Is we've gotten so used to January being kind of a bust month for the last few years because everybody's just been literally at home sick. So it's just been like a collective sick day for every sick month for everybody. So like I think January was just kind of up in the air this year because nobody trusted it. Everybody was just waiting to hear like, oh, what variant's out now? What are we doing? And again, it's not that stuff didn't happen. It just didn't hit in the ways that we kind of thought it could on the bad end, right? Like it's always a sliding scale, But I think everybody's kind of come past that, and for good or for ill, because there's definitely some people out there that are going to take it now as an opportunity to go too far. Sure. The Super Bowl.
I don't even want to think about that. Thanks for putting
but
it.
You're not wrong. It does feel like we've been kind of just waiting, and now here we are.
And it also comes down to the fact that like anytime something was announced prior to this, like that's when COVID like kind of, oh, you want to release something on the 12th of May? Well, guess what's going to happen right before the 12th of May? And it's like we sort of like anthropomorphized the virus in this weird way. And it is, but like now that I have stuff to look forward to, I mean, did you do anything with the Metroid Prime remaster?
No, I was spending all of my time with Game Boy is what I've been doing since the announcement.
Wonderful things to discuss. That Metroid Prime remaster, I did not like Metroid Prime, but the main reason I had a problem with Metroid Prime was the control scheme. So the fact that like it now is twin stick sort of modern shooter controls, I'm very excited for it, but I also still don't trust Nintendo. So I'm waiting for the physical release next Wednesday. And I was able to get, a pre-order. I should be able to pick it up on the day, fingers crossed. But everybody who's been playing it, it looks gorgeous. And it really, lights a fire under my theory of the fact that, the N64 stuff, we just weren't sure what to do with it. Because now that we've gotten to the GameCube games, and that's what we're remastering and re-releasing, ditto with PlayStation 2 stuff and the Tony Hawk things. Granted, that was PlayStation 1, but and the way that we've been reapproaching these games, like I'm excited for what's
Yeah.
to come from
No,
more
I am.
GameCube remasters.
But you did start this by asking about this big kind of punch in the gut moment, which
Yeah.
is that they're going to start charging $80, $70 for games, right? Like there's and the thing is that I I don't love it. Like I'm not. We're gonna talk about it a lot here, and I don't want to act like we're defending it in any way because it's bullshit. Like video games cost too much money nowadays across the board. That is simply just the fact. If I want to spend a certain amount of money on a game that is like this, then that has definitely happened. But that doesn't mean that it should be the norm, nor should it have ever been an option. Like it just sucks how expensive video games are. So the thing that was really intriguing when they introduced that, though, is they've also got a slew of games that are coming up, remasters, re-releases, but also some new stuff and smaller stuff that are like all over the map price point wise. I mean, the fact of the matter is that I could sit down on the Switch store right now and I can find a game that I might enjoy for $10. I can find a game I might enjoy for $110. There is stuff across the board and available now. It's not kind of like it was when the Switch even as recently as when the Switch first came out. Like there was just this kind of one price point for Nintendo games, and then like sometimes you would get like a really good like hefty indie that came in at like $40, and those were your two options. But that's just not true anymore. Like there's stuff all over the map. And so the fact that and I think the Switch is better at this kind of pricing than anyone else. PlayStation has this pricing stuff available, but then they so constantly fuck with like pricing and the ways that things are listed because of sales and bullshit. Like I they were trying to push a sale on me the other day on the PlayStation Store where the main game was $14.99 and the sale price was $14.98, and like that was true on like it, and then all the DLC was normally $4.99 and all of the DLCs were on sale for $4.98. And it was like, really? Why is this like front page for me? Like what are you doing? Like so I PlayStation's kind of pissed me off right now. But like the way that the Switch stuff has been going, they've really opened the doors to this kind of wide variety of pricing depending on what you want. And like if they're using it feels like they're kind of pushing that outer limit of what they can charge for a full game because of it. I don't know. My hope is that that pricing might reflect something like and then the DLC's all free, but that's probably not going to happen.
Probably not going to happen. That'd be really
No.
cool, but I guess here's the thing. The Metroid game that I'm going to be picking up next Wednesday, which is crazy. Right now in the store I can buy for $40. That physical copy that I can get on Wednesday, the 22nd, is also $40.
Hmm.
I feel really all right with that. Like, I'm like, it's the same thing. The reason for me is that they don't do a really good job with being able to, like, transfer games or play games between accounts. So I'm going to buy the game card, and I will feel a little bit safer in my purchase. Right?
Well, and I don't know what size Switch you've got, but like so many of these games now that they don't even openly tell you are like, hey, we can't fit this whole thing in your system, so it's going to stream like 50% of this game to you. It's like, oh, all right. I don't have good internet, so I wish I had known that, or I wouldn't have bought this. Like,
Yeah. So I'm excited with that. And $40, that's good. So if the Tears of the Kingdom thing is not every Nintendo release going forward, I'm feeling pretty good about it. Like if it is a Zelda game that is highly anticipated and probably bigger than its than its older brother in some way, shape, or form. Because, apparently it's just going to be Breath of the Wild, but with a Skyland and an Underland. Underland? I,
but yeah, and that's what I mean more about the DLC thing is it may not even be packaged as DLC, but if the idea is that there's more going on here and than normal, like maybe, but that's such a hard thing to justify because there are $60 games that are there are $60 games that are just like 10 hours worth of content, and then there are $60 games that are 300 hours worth of content. So like how do you measure what is worth that money? That it's such a weird like kind of math that every individual buyer just needs to do for themselves. And so this whole idea of them pushing their luck with this, I'm not surprised, I think is really the biggest reaction I have to it. Like, yep, it was inevitable. Somebody was going to start doing this shit.
Sony and Microsoft are already doing it. Nintendo wants
Right.
to follow trends. I would personally like to think that it means that a new Switch is coming. And I'm not one of these, oh my God, new Switch people, right? I'm not a content creator who, when the well is running dry, they start a rumor about a Switch Pro, right? That's what it seems to be. Whenever I'm watching YouTube and it starts up, it's like, so this idea came from nowhere and everybody's reporting on it? That's cool. Can't wait till the AI learns that lesson. But it's one of those things where if they're going to start charging literally next gen prices for games, because that's a PS5 game, that's an Xbox Series game, while the PS4 version is generally still that $59.99, $60 price point, like, does that mean that there's a next generation for the Switch, like, that's going to follow that? Especially if you look at the history, Zelda games historically have been released to usher in the next thing that Nintendo is doing.
Yeah, I mean, you know, getting Tears of the Kingdom in what is it, March, May?
May 12th.
May, yeah, getting Tears of the Kingdom in May, and then getting an announcement in like September, September, October about a new system, and it'll be out this Christmas. Like, it'd be really wild. I don't know, because the problem is that if it doesn't come out this year, the new system this hypothetical new system, if it doesn't come out this year, if it comes out next year, I don't know, like. That by that point I wouldn't call Tears of the Kingdom on the cusp of between two systems, but maybe I don't know.
No, I wouldn't. It would have to be this year. And the additional thing is, if you buy the Switch 2, the Super Switch, the Switch 64,
this one, Tears of the Kingdom, is all left-handed.
Well, what a prick you are. Love you, big guy, but come on. If you play your game of Tears of the Kingdom on that, you get like the up-res stuff that you get between a PS4 version of a game and a PS5 version of a game. So like they're future-proofing it by charging that next generation Switch price at the front of it. Nobody's going to be upset.
Right,
and,
when they have to pay that same price for it on the next system.
On the next system, but you got to play it on the Switch while we were working out how to do the new system. Now you get to play it on the new system with the enhancements. I mean, it's sort of like the Oracle of Ages games, playing it on a Game Boy Color or playing it on a Game Boy Advance. And how, like, the loading times are a little bit faster and some of the graphic fidelity is a little bit crisper. Shantae is another one that released right along the side and had basically a completely different game on the Game Boy Advance. I mean, like, that's being a little hyperbolic, but being able to unlock, like, what you could unlock in that game if you played it on Game Boy Advance made that game play so differently.
I mean, it made that game complete, really,
from a really good point. That's a good,
yeah, like it almost felt like it was finished finally. This is not going to be about shitting on Shantae.
No, we love Shantae here at the Say Report.
But there is something to, like, this bubble has to burst, right? Like this pricing cannot stand. People cannot keep paying, especially on the Switch, where at some point you're paying what, a third, almost a half of what you paid for the system for one game. Like, every 2 games you buy, you might as well buy yourself another Switch. Like not that it works out in terms of, like, the content you get, but, like, holy shit, like, that's crazy, right?
The really scary thing about the $70 for games, and we're so behind the rest of the world in having this conversation, so apologies if it's not fun, but it's one of those things where now that it's on the Switch, it's something that bothers me. It bothers me because Nintendo historically doesn't lower the prices of their first-party games.
Well, and I will say that is actually one thing that's another thing that they've gotten really loose on. Like, in addition to the fact that it feels like they're widening their scope on what they can charge for a game, I've seen more and more mainline Nintendo titles actually go on sale, more than I ever have in the past. You know, like, just this week with the announcement of Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild was on sale for like $40. Like, you could get like it, and then, like, the DLC was on sale. So, like, they are also not as much as anybody else, and not enough to make to like justify it. It's not like, hey, they're gonna say it's $70, but just wait until it's 50. That you don't. Who knows when that's gonna be, right? They're not doing that enough, but they are doing it more than they used to. So it's like this weird, like it's that Nintendo iceberg is slowly moving towards, right, slowly progressing. Like it's taken them 15 years to figure out internet, kind of. Now they're slowly starting to figure out like how sales work. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah, but that's the thing. If it's a $70 game, $60 games go down to 40. Will the $70 game go down to $50? Like, is that what it's going to follow?
Yeah.
So then, but what bothers me about it, what has always bothered me about the $70 price point, is games pretty much our entire life kind of topped out at $60. If you look at old like KB Toy ads or Toys R Us ads, Nintendo games in the like end of the 80s, early 90s, they were $60.
Yeah, it was boutique pricing to see anything over $60 because you usually got bullshit like this one comes with a drone or something, right? Like there that like weird because there was a push in like the 2000s to really kind of up like what people were paying for games, but knowing that people were going to be kind of like shitty about it, they started to include shit along with it, pack-ins and tie-ins,
the collector's edition,
and digital.
yeah.
Well, so then it evolved into digital shit, and then the digital shit it evolved into the collector's editions, game of the year editions, like that kind of stuff. So like they're still trying to figure this out. Not Nintendo. Nintendo's just like, nah, fuck it. It's a game and it's $70.
Right.
Like, okay.
And again, and I know you don't have a PS5, you don't have a Microsoft Series X. That's the price of games on that too. So it's not new. It's just it's disheartening to see Nintendo going that same way. Now, of course,
I guess what it is for me with the Xbox stuff and the PlayStation stuff is that also still seems very boutique to me. Like it's very much catering to a very elite few people. Because I'll be honest, I don't know anybody besides you that owns a PS5. Like it just.
I mean, your brother does, but
right? Does he?
Yeah.
What does he play on it?
I don't know,
like,
but he got himself one for his birthday. So I mean, just so that I get why you would focus on me because of the show and everything.
If anybody owns a PS5, they're not talking.
They're not really talking
right?
about it.
Whereas
That's a good
like
point.
the Switch is something we like everybody I know owns a Switch, and we're always talking about the games we're playing on it.
Yeah. And is that the Nintendo of it all, or is it the Switch of it all? I don't.
So it's just this is going to be the first one that's going to impact people that like I'm gonna like hear about. You know, like I don't know.
That boutique of it all, that's interesting with the PS5 and the series in terms of the fact that
I don't know. Does Zach also own an Xbox? He owns like one of the like
he owns the Series
ones,
S.
Right?
He ended up getting the Series S when he was given the choice between the two. And honestly, just Devin Decker pausing for 1 second. If you want a next gen system, the Series S is kind of the way to go. It is the same
one?
Yeah, it's all digital. It's the same size as the Nintendo Switch, like price wise and footprint wise. The thing is tiny. I can't get over how small the Xbox Series S is. And if you couple that with Game Pass, which if you're on Nintendo Switch, you're paying a monthly fee to have the online stuff, right? So paying $15.99 a month to get Game Pass, you get all of the Xbox like first party stuff, day and date release. It honestly, I don't know how they're making money on it. And this feels like an ad, and that's not what it is. It's one of those situations that as a consumer, it is such a pro-consumer move from a company in the tech sector that it baffles me. I don't understand it. Yeah.
You know, and not gonna like fanboy out about them, but like it's that idea that they are leaders when it comes to making these kinds of decisions, and hopefully other people follow suit. But yeah, so you talk about the Xbox, you talk about the Game Pass, and that's all I ever hear about the Xbox is the Game Pass. I don't hear about anybody actually buying the $70 games. They're just playing them online. So like that's the other thing is that like this is also the only time where there's not that I'm aware of that there's not this is a huge amount of people that own Switches. It is a huge amount of like fanfare because it is a Zelda game, and then on top of that there's not really another option. Like if you want to play this game, that is the way to do it.
That's the legal way to do it. Let's not pretend that there's not fully capable Switch emulators out there. And
my mom's not going to go out and figure out how to buy a Switch emulator just because she wants to play with Tears of the Kingdom, right? Like that's not going to happen. Let's. But
not be couldn't ridiculous. Your mom ask you to do it, and would you know how to do it?
I don't know how to do it.
Okay, no. That's the question. That's why I wanted to ask. Is
I mean, yes. There's always illegal ways to do shit. Yes, that's true. But at the end of the day, Xbox is giving you a variety of options and ways to play that game. PlayStation 5, nobody fucking owns one. So like when they want to charge $70 for a game, that conversation is, well, they need to make money somehow, right?
They need to make money somehow, and also you can still just buy the PlayStation 4. It looks
like greed.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But when Nintendo does it, there isn't that other system in place. There is no other excuse. There is no back door for them to sneak out of. It is purely they want to make money.
Actually, the grosser thing about it is, I'm sure you got the email about you can buy 2 digital game vouchers for $100.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody has been like, well, that's how I'm going to get Tears of the Kingdom, because then I'm getting the game for $50. I'm saving $20 on the game. And it's like, yes, you're saving $20 on the game down the line. But right now, you're just forking over $100 to Nintendo.
That system is actually one that has been in place in Europe and certain parts of the world for years.
Oh yeah, I've seen it before. They've done it here.
It's a really big thing in Australia. Well, the thing is in Australia and Europe and stuff like that, games have been super unaffordably expensive for a lot of people for a long time. So those vouchers were actually kind of in place as a system to kind of help regulate the market, but without having to change their pricing. It's a really gross workaround that's being used in other countries. Some people out there probably have a very positive view about it, and it does get games in people's hands. That's great. But at the end of the day, the fact that this is something coming from Nintendo being are our games too expensive? Well, you can buy in on this slightly more expensive thing now, but with the promise you'll save money later. To your point, is they're just gonna get $100 from you. Then it's a guaranteed 100 instead of just buying 7. Instead of a
guaranteed 70 down the line.
Yeah.
It's the other thing.
And then you know what's gonna happen with that other $50 quote unquote on there, that second game, is you're gonna hold off for so long, you're gonna kind of forget about it. Then one day you will remember it, and you'll do it on something doofy. You'll be like, oh yeah, this game that I've been meaning to play for a while that Nintendo isn't even tracking numbers on anymore, and that's what you'll do the second one on. So then it's no skin off their teeth, right? They're banking on you kind of letting that other purchase, that second purchase that you're thinking about, but don't really have a specific thing. They're hoping that kind of just leaves your brain for a bit.
Yeah, exactly. Or with the release of Metroid Prime Remastered, right? You could buy that. You could use that for one of your vouchers, and you have that game right now. And that's
but that would be dumb.
That would be dumb. But the people who have that and they're like, but I want to play something now. You also have the Kirby remaster that's coming out 2 days after especially the physical edition of that. That is a $60
especially if you
game.
If you bought this voucher and then already used the first claim on something like Tears of the Kingdom, and then you're thinking to yourself, well, that was by buying Prime with the other one, that balances out, right? There's a weird math.
I'm still saving $10.
It's the gift card math that companies figured out all those years ago. Is of course we'll sell you a gift card because the odds that you'll ever use it are already slim, and then on top of that, you won't use all of it, or you'll spend more money than you intended to because you're going to take money off because it's a gift card. They figured out that there's this user psychology to voucher systems, and they're going to
exploit it. Yeah. I like how we took that. That felt very pessimist optimist. It's and also it's all cash. It's all tax free, right?
Yeah.
A voucher is tax free income to them because it's the promise of a purchase later. So it's just $100. So you as the consumer, you're like, oh, I just give them $100 and then I get 2 games. And then they also that thing rolling out on the Monday before a Nintendo Direct where they introduced a bunch of other stuff. Advance Wars is finally coming.
Yep.
So that's that's essentially 2 games that I can get with my voucher. Pikmin 4, all of these things that they introduced alongside that voucher program, being like, hey, this is a pretty good idea.
Advance Wars had a $50 tag on it too, right?
Yeah,
Didn't it?
I don't know Advance Wars price. I know it was $50 before. I don't know if it's still.
Yeah, this just to the thing about like them having a wider pool of pricing. Like there were some stuff that they announced that were going to be $50, some that was going to be 60. Tears of the Kingdom was 70. Then there was a whole bunch of like smaller stuff, like Castle of Illusion. There, not Castle of Illusion, Island of Illusion, right? The new Mickey one. That's coming in at 40, right?
Yeah. And that I'm okay with $40 for that. I don't know if I want it on Switch. I hope that it's not a Switch exclusive. I also don't know if I want to play that game, even though I got excited when I saw it.
I mean, I'm super excited for it, and the fact that there's online 4-player do that Castle of Illusion style.
As far as I know, it's only local. I don't think it's online 4-player. They said local 4-player co-op. If it were online, I'd be all about it. But I don't.
That's a bummer. But I also have a bunch of people.
You have 4 people you can play with.
Would play that game. Yeah. So I mean, if it is only local, I'll still get a bunch of people to play it. So yeah,
makes sense.
It'd be a real shame if it's not. Be considering the state of the world nowadays. Although there is a contingency of people that really are pushing for more just couch co-op style games, but whatever. That is unfortunate, but not a killer for me. I'm still very much looking forward to that game.
Because Zach had shared it with both of us prior to me seeing the video, and then my thought was, oh cool, the 4 of us can get together and play this game. It'll be a mess and it'll be crazy and we'll be yelling at each other, but it will be fun, right? It'll be that type of fun that you expect from this experience. And then when I finally saw the trailer and it's like with 4-player local co-op, I'm like, man, that kind of bums me out a little bit. Like, don't get me wrong, I love the local stuff. I love, like, just yesterday I did a 3-player game of Super Mario World 3D, Super Mario 3D World.
Yeah.
And then all of our controllers died, so we couldn't continue because none of the controllers were charged. But like we started it up and we were excited to do it. So it is. I like local, but I guess for me it's that like if you have the local, it'd be really cool if you could also make that work online. And then like River City Girls 2, I'm sorry to bring it up again. It's 4-player local, 2-player online. At least you have it. Streets of Rage 4 did that too.
Yeah.
Like, but in a world where we got Shredder's Revenge, which was 6-player, like 6-player online, and then like PlayStation could only do 4-player local because of the way that their Bluetooth receivers work. We can't have more than 4 controllers. Like, that's crazy. That's insane. That like, yeah, we wrote the netcode to have 6 people playing this game online.
I mean, I think what really that speaks to is more and more we're finding how kind of ingenious like the background of Shredder's Revenge truly is. Yeah. Like there's just been so many people that have tried to capture that exact part of it, right? That online part, the multiplayer aspect of it, that have just kind of not like gotten to that same level. And I think that's gonna be the case for a while. We're really gonna discover that they really bottled lightning with that game.
Yeah, and it's the same guys who did Streets of Rage 4. So then like I go back to that game and it's like it's weird that you guys couldn't get the 4-player on this one.
But if they weren't given the development,
the time or the stuff,
or tools, then it just didn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does look like Illusion Island is only going to be local currently.
Yeah. That doesn't mean that it's not going to come down eventually,
but yeah, it does say that right now it is single system only. I think that means that there's no online.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm glad to confirm that, even though it's not what I want to know or it's not the outcome I want. It's good to have that confirmed.
I just like what I think of is Rayman.
It looks like Rayman. It looks like Rayman.
Rayman Legends and Rayman. Yeah, like I loved those games, and they were so much fun to have friends come over and hang out and play like a good platformer that moved so like, yeah, it just. So to be able to recapture that stuff is what I'm looking for, and so far it seems like I'm going to be able to do that. But yeah, like Disney's like Illusion Island, like we're going to pay homage to one of the greatest SNES games of all time on the Switch, and it's going to be $40, and it's like, oh yeah, like this is going to be a good time.
Yeah, and that's Disney saying $40 is enough for our big major IP thing.
Yeah.
So it's also something crazy when in the same thing where Disney's like, yeah, $40 for our game, whatever. Nintendo then's like $70 for our game.
Yeah.
Like the whole greed of it all, it just compounds. You know what
Yeah,
else?
I wonder if we'll see an online element to it, if and when it moves to other systems,
Yeah.
like Illusion Island, because I cannot imagine it's going to stay on the Switch. I think right now it's a Switch exclusive, but I don't see any reason why, like in a year or two, we won't see like a PS4 release of it, right?
Yeah.
And then
Well,
and I wonder
PS5,
if,
hopefully, if it's in a year or two. Hopefully,
I
we
don't
start
know,
releasing
man.
just for that. I don't. Yeah, you're right. You bring up a good point.
I know. I really don't know what to tell you. They're still selling PS4s like crazy. So
I know. So there's no incentive to get a PS5.
Yeah.
Like there really is no incentive to get the PS5. Oh, I mean the graphics are a little bit better, and I have to pay $10 more for each game that I buy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll sign me up. You know what though? Also, price wise, I do want to talk about it. I might have mentioned it briefly in an earlier episode, but Vengeful Guardian Moonrider is this little $15 game. I actually think it might be $16.99. I don't remember. I got it on special when it first released, and it was like 5% off, so it was $15. That game feels like a Mega Man game on the NES. It is short, it is sweet, and I am not upset about paying $15 for it.
Nice.
And like,
I just picked up a game for $2 yesterday. I was very, very happy with it, but
Super Cyborg.
no, it's called Dungeons of Dreadrock. I'm pretty sure it's one of those ones that feels like it was probably a phone game. And this is a big thing on Switch is they port it on over to the Switch, and the majority of the time they don't bother with anything on the controls, and so it ends up being kind of a shit experience. This one has a couple of instances of that. Like for instance, they don't label what items, like what button to press to select items in your inventory, because I'm sure that it's just a tap on the screen, right? And if I was playing the Switch handheld, I could probably just tap on the screen and just tap on it to use it. But if the controller's in hand, you don't know what button to press to use what items. Luckily, it's not hard to figure out, and there's only like 2 items slotted at a time, and like it's this little puzzle game, so it's not detrimental to the experience. But but it's pretty obvious that that's the case. But it's normally $10. It was on sale for 2, and I had a bunch of Nintendo points.
Those coins that will expire if you don't use them.
Yeah, exactly. So I just dumped them into it and just been having a hell of a time with that.
Cool.
But it's that's what I mean, is like the Switch has really kind of become like my go-to system when I don't know what to do with myself, right? When I'm like, hey, I've been cleaning the house all day and I need to chill out for an hour. I'll just pop the Switch on and just find something to play. Like, it's not even like, hey, this is a specific game I'm coming to. And that used to be the case with PlayStation, but that just isn't the case anymore. I've got so many issues with games that I have downloaded that are glitchy or that are feeling like first of all, nothing really exciting has really come out much in the PlayStation, like in terms of that short experience, at least. Like there just seems to be a lack of that for me on my PlayStation that I'm finding on my Switch now. And like it's fascinating because, and I should have known this was going to happen, but 5 years ago it was completely flip-flopped, right? When the Switch was coming out, it was like Nintendo just couldn't find its footing on anything. For me, I mean, they just were dropping the ball left, right, and center in terms of what they were doing with the Switch. It's why I didn't get one for the first 2 years that they were out, right?
That second year where they had a major first-party release every month really was hyper good PR for them.
Yeah,
because that was, even if there's not something you're interested in this month, next month there probably will be. So they were not only moving their games, they were moving the systems. It's not surprising that we've seen the success from the Switch that we've seen. And honestly, I don't know why they would want to revise and go to a next generation system while it still clearly has so much life left in it.
Well, people are finally figuring out how to develop for it, right? Like, I mean, the big thing was that when they first started pulling some third-party stuff in, it was all just like ports. And people were talking about like, yeah, there's a Switch port, but it's not the greatest. And now that's evolved into the Switch version. There is a lot of Switch versions, and even those are not great, but there are, and they're the only reason that they might want to bump to a Switch 2 in any fashion is that like it has nothing to do with like they got to get the Joy-Cons figured out, but that's a separate thing. What I was going to say is memory. They need a system that can handle bigger games just in terms of storage. This forcing people to have to be online to stream a game in order to play once it hits a certain size is untenable. Like that you can't expect that because nobody's internet is the same. And then on top of that, like the system should be able to handle this stuff. Now, the thing is that memory is exactly what adds money, like price, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the second they start adding more memory is the second that the price is going to change on it. So that's what they need to figure out is how can we get more memory into this thing without making this thing cost $600 like a PlayStation? Because right now that's the only real thing I think that's keeping them back from not playing alongside a PS5 for me or an Xbox is that like yeah, things are looking good, games are fun to play, but fuck me, the fact that I need to like rotate through my library and re-download games and move games off and all of this stuff, I don't have to do that with any other system. My PlayStation I do that with only because like I'm finicky about like what I keep downloaded and not, but I have 400 gigabytes worth of space still on my PlayStation today with pretty much the majority of my library installed on it.
Yeah. You're not wrong. You bring up a good point. I'd also like to see Wi-Fi 6E on there. I'd like to see it be more compatible, considering things like there are games that stream. And honestly, if we're talking what would really sell a Switch like 2 for me, the sequel to the Switch, give the dock some intelligence. Like, you know what would be a really good way to like increase that memory that you're talking about? If your Switch has its onboard memory and your dock has memory, and you can still throw in mini SD cards, maybe like multiple slots for it, so that if you're on the go with your Switch, you have the stuff that's on your Switch, but if you dock it, it's all right there. And then if you're rotating the stock of what's on it, you don't have to re-download it. You're literally just transferring the file from the console to the dock that it's connected
it's literally
to.
just a copy paste system at that point. Yeah.
Like I think that would go add some brains to the dock. And honestly, I think that's how you could also get things like have the Switch be good in handheld mode, but then have the dock bump you up to 4K resolution. Mm-hmm. Heck, I mean, like that could just be what the next system is a new system dock that like interacts with the console you currently have better.
That would be nuts if they could start figuring that sort of stuff out. I mean, it would be great, like from a consumer standpoint.
It would be great it would also be good for that, like e-waste wise, to not have a million Switches wind up in the junkyard because I don't want to play with you anymore. And it also, in terms of options, like because not everybody is going to feel the need to buy the like Dock 2. Right? The Dock X that has built-in storage to it and can interface with the Switches, so it's just copying, pasting your files. Like, that'd be really cool. But, you know, Johnny down the street who's 5 years old and is only using his Switch to play Pokemon is not going to have a need for that.
Well, and it would sure justify that, like, weird-ass, like, $150 price for the dock or whatever. Like there's some docks available that are just like stupid expensive, and like you're saying, there's nothing to them.
My argument with the Nintendo Switch since the beginning is if you want a second dock, just buy another Switch.
Yeah, like by the time you pay for the second dock, you're already 2/3 of the way to another system, right?
Yeah, because you're also probably going to want more Joy-Cons, right? So all the things that you would buy as accessories for a Switch, 2 Switches, and then like you can also sell that console, right? Like game stores just buy the brain of the Switch, knowing that they can do their add-ons with Joy-Cons and stuff. Like, that's not great, right? But the secondary market, however it is, but it just boiled down to when I was looking for another dock and more Joy-Cons, I'm like, the cost-effective matter here. Because a dock and 2 Joy-Cons is half the price of a Nintendo Switch.
Right.
And it's just like, I could save up a little bit more and...
Just save for a couple more months and buy yourself the full thing. It's they need to tighten up on a lot of stuff because it's Nintendo. That's always going to be the case. They're always going to be doing things that are just going to make people scratch their heads. It's going to piss people off, and then people are just going to keep buying their shit. That's what's going to happen. So I mean, the pricing thing sucks. Like $80, $70. Like we're going to start seeing games that are just base games that are going to be close to $100 to buy, and
that'll be a bridge
just
too far for me. That'll be when I stop gaming. $100 for a game is where I would draw the line. I can say that to you right here, right now. $70 is almost the line. Like I need to. I mean, I have a slush fund that I throw money into so that when games come out, I can buy them and it doesn't really like blow my budget up, right?
Right.
And I've enjoyed that, and it's made things work for me since I started that, right? Being able to buy 2 PlayStation 5s on release day and not feel it at all was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
you know,
and that's just because
we are lucky enough to be in the position to do things like
yeah,
that.
exactly. No, that's what I'm saying.
But, yeah.
But like, this is a person who has structured his life and his budget to be able to do things like that. $100 a game, I'd be done with the hobby. I would be done. I would be done with it. That's just too much. And I say like that's it. I can't justify it. And I'm somebody who, because I was working overseas, I paid $70 for Dead Rising 2, not knowing what that game was going to be. And like my roommate was like, I can't believe you just spent $70 on this game. I got $70 out of Dead Rising 2, as I was just reminded of the day where I sat down and killed 1 million zombies in 3 days in the game. I actually think it was 72,000, but still, like, that was an experience.
Yeah, man.
Like,
it's the, I mean, the problem is like this all comes down to what is in people's pockets, right?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
The fact of the matter is that $70 for a game at a time when people are
already hurting
in this country is such a wild swing. But they're doing it with this game that they know they can get away with, you know, and that sucks. Like that, it really is just a bummer. Yeah. Out of all of the stuff in that presentation that really did kind of excite me, like, you know, we've just talked very excitedly for the last little bit about the Switch. That was a true gut punch when they announced that price. It was just like, what the hell? Because of what it means going forward. Like, it's not that I you know, as I said, we are lucky enough to be in positions where paying $70 for this game when it comes out is probably not going to be the thing that ruins us. There are plenty of other things in my life that'll take care of that. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so like, it's not that it is hurting me personally. It's just that I just cannot imagine what this is going to be doing for everybody else out there. And then add to that, what does that mean in the future? It's not hurting me personally now, but you better believe at some point it's going to get to be too much. Like you said, $100 for a game is just like, no, I can't do this anymore.
It would be too much for me, especially when you consider all of the other options that are out there. They're less than
unless
legal.
We all start getting paid $25 an hour, right? Yeah.
Even then, like, what's it, 4 hours at work to play a game? Like that, I don't. It's
we're currently talking about 10 hours at work for some people to buy a $70
true.
game.
You're not. I'm still talking for me. I'm still talking for me, and talking about for other people. Like, it's just 7 hours at work. Like with I think the minimum wage is 10 now, right? Or is it still at 7? Right? Whatever. I don't want to talk about.
Minimum wage is not $10. No.
No. Okay.
No. I don't know about what it is for you guys in Rhode Island, but federal minimum wage is still like.
I didn't know. I know that there was a lot of talk about raising the federal minimum wage. I know we weren't going to get anywhere near the 15 that people are wanting, but I thought that, God, with inflation, I can't. I just want to vomit talking about it right now. I'm sorry. I don't. Not to go there. You know what I didn't like about the Switch presentation? A couple of things, because this that Strikers game that like looks like air hockey. I'm very excited to play it. Why is that on pre-order? Why is a free online game something that like go pre-order now?
Yeah, they basically anything that they announced was basically up for pre-order. Like there's like 2 or 3 things I found that don't have like the pre-order now option on it, and I don't know what the deal is with that stuff because as far as I know, the Switch isn't doing what the PlayStation does with like the pre-download and stuff, is it?
No, you can't preload.
Right, so there's like no real reason to like get a thing in advance, really. I mean, like it's not like they're gonna run out, and you're not getting any benefit of like pre-download, so you can play right at midnight. So like, what is the? I don't know.
And
It's
half
just
the
marketing
time, right at
nonsense.
midnight is not when the game is available.
Well, right, yeah, exactly. Because you got to go with like whatever time, whichever time zone they find themselves tied to for whatever reason, and it could be something ridiculous. It's not like, oh, in Japan it's midnight, so it's, oh no. It could be like, oh yeah, but like the animation department for this section of the game is actually from the Ukraine, so we have to go off of Ukrainian time because if something goes wrong, they need to be available to do so. Like it's okay.
Will gets to play any Switch release. Like, generally, Will could play any Switch release a day before us, based on
Man.
how releases go. Of course, he'd have to pay like 120 Australian dollars.
No,
for
he's
that
got to get one of
game.
them vouchers.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course. But yeah, it's so that whole thing, the whole pre-order now for like free online games. I'm like, is that really where things are going? And Dale's like, well, then they understand their player base, and I'm like, yeah, I understand it, but also at the same time, gross.
Yeah, but you know what? Steam has for years, like PC gaming has for years had betas and alpha versions available for people that for games that turned out to be free. Like getting people in and playing the game. Now the
If I
argument
could
on
play
their
the
side,
game, that'd be different. It is
right? The
just
argument on their side is that we're giving you some of the game, is that we get whatever it is now. But like the pre-ordering is also available there. It is out of the norm for sure, but it's not out of the norm in a way that is like hurting anybody right now. So once it becomes a thing where like, hey, you opted into this pre-order and we're gonna like slam you with a bunch of notifications or something like that, then maybe I'll be like, hey, we need to talk about this pre-ordering bullshit. But right now, if they want to get people in on board and see who's interested, because the other thing is that a pre-order is not a promise that you're going to like buy it. There's a lot of stuff that just says like you can just do like remind me's. Like you don't have to like just because there's
it was
no
the
benefit
use
to
of the
paying
term
advance.
pre-order for
Right,
something
right,
free that just rubbed me the wrong way. Remind
right.
me, I love wish list. Give me it all day.
Right,
Yeah.
right. It's that idea that like they're asking you to put money down, or in this case, a promise down, I guess, to download, and it's just like I like you don't need that from me, right? Like that can't be your marketing strategy. Is hopefully the back half of the game is funded by people that haven't even seen it yet. Like, is that really where we're at in the industry?
If enough people don't pre-order this game on Nintendo Switch, we're just not going to release it on Nintendo Switch. Is that what you guys are thinking? And if that is what you guys are thinking, I don't want to play ball with you. The way that we've seen live services just dying on the vine, and we will talk about one of those live services in March because it's still too fresh for me to even think about.
Avengers, are you worried about your games as service Avengers going away?
Well, I mean, it's apparently I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it, and it's something that I don't want to think about until I have to think about it. I want to be excited to play the Metroid Prime remaster when I get the physical copy. Grim Guardians is a game that's coming out that looks like Portrait of Ruin, Castlevania Portrait of Ruin. That Dale and I are looking forward to playing. That comes out on the 23rd.
It's been announced for a while, but how are you feeling about the Dead Cells Castlevania?
I don't know how to feel about it. Like, there's part of me that wants to go back to Dead Cells and try it. If the Dead Cells Castlevania is not the procedurally generated stuff, like, the problem with Castlevania is Castlevania as a castle, right? The location, not the game, is very much an established castle. The castle is built, and it has been the way that it has been since Symphony of the Night. I mean,
There's
honestly,
been different maps and stuff, right? Like, there's been various maps. Has it really been the same map in every
so
Castlevania game?
I was actually going to go forward to the fact that Castlevania 1, the stuff that you do in Castlevania 1, in Castlevania 3, when you're Trevor Belmont years earlier, once you get to the actual castle part, you replay sections of the castle the way that it was. Ditto in Super Castlevania, which is sort of a remake of the original Castlevania, so like it's kind of juggly about that, but it's very much like there is that long bridge into, I mean, Symphony of the Night is the one where you can really see, I mean, because it's based off of Rondo of Blood, which Rondo of Blood does the same thing, but They
I don't
take
want to break your heart, but I have a sneaking suspicion that this Dead Cells
it's Dead
Castlevania
Cells,
game
so of course
is
it's
is well, and I think the draw is that play Castlevania, but the rooms are procedurally generated rooms. Which I never thought that Castlevania was procedurally generated rooms. I just assumed that they just had different maps for each game. Honestly, like I didn't know Castlevania was about one specific castle.
yeah,
Like I
Castlevania is
like
the name of Dracula's castle in that world. And
that's fucking wild.
and even though like I will admit that there are some where they're like, due to the nature of the castle, things can shift and be there or not be there. Generally, the build of the castle is on the same like sort of foundation, and you know, like the first
I'm
area.
looking for the library that I walked into in game 1. Is it possible for me to go and find that in like game 3 or
Well, not 1 and 3. Those games
well,
are very, because those are like more stage. But once it becomes exploration based, Symphony of the Night is really where the idea of what the castle is has gone forward. It's why when someone's like, you should play Aria of Sorrow, and I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to play Aria of Sorrow, being Soma Cruz and all of that stuff, and then I played it and I'm like, oh my god, it's basically the same castle. This is incredible. Like it blew me away that that's what Konami was doing with the Castlevania games. Yeah. Was very much being beholden to the castle as they developed it. And even then, other games like that don't take place in the castle, that's the reason they don't take place in the castle, so they can do like different things with the locale.
Yeah, like Shadow. What's the like 3D one? The
Shadow of the Colossus one. Lord of Shadows.
Shadow of the Colossus. Lord of Shadows.
Well, yeah, Lord of Shadows, but it's very similar to Shadow of the Colossus, where you are killing giant creatures. That game's weird, though. The story of that game.
The two like Castlevania one with like the future Dracula in it and stuff like that. Are we talking about the same game? I don't remember climbing up giant creatures to kill them.
Wait, I thought Lord of Shadows, like part of it, you're not climbing up them, but it is killing like giant monsters.
Well, they're like bigger than you. Like there's like a werewolf that is like, you know, he bursts through the wall of a house, but like he's not. I
don't know the way that a lot of people described that game as Castlevania does Shadow of the Colossus.
They lied to you if that's the case. That's not what that game is at all. Either those two games are super fun, but yeah, they don't really. There is a lot of time in the castle. I'd be curious to hear how they translate that if that's the case. Honestly, they're the only Castlevania games I've ever played start to finish. Is both of those games.
The 3D games are also that's usually a different thing. It's the 2D ones where they're kind of beholden to it, and the other thing is that it's DLC. Like if it were a full game, Dead Cell Return to Castlevania, I would like if it was the first time through you play the game and then it procedurally generates once you've defeated Dracula. Like that'd be very cool. That's how I would do it, right? Then you're adding the dead cells of it all to it.
No, but that's not what you're doing is you're not taking Castlevania and adding dead cells to it. You're taking dead cells and adding Castlevania to it. It's going in the other direction. Like that, it clearly is. Yeah. I was just curious if it gave you any interest in going back to dead cells, because I know that you don't like the procedurally generated like.
So I've been doing more procedurally generated and roguelike games. You got me to play Bounty of One, which I kind of hate. No offense to anything there. I've done well in it. I'm up to Infamy level 15, so I've been also succeeding.
Levels to that game, so I'm curious what you're gonna call procedurally generated.
Well, it's the each run is different. Like it's like you see different bosses.
So at certain
sheriffs are the same. So there's that.
At certain levels, certain types of villains are introduced. So once you hit like level 10 is when like firefighting guys will come in and things like that, and you can kind of dictate some of that sort of stuff.
So I haven't really figured out that portion of it. I'll be completely honest with you. It always seems like to me it's more the deputies are definitely randomly generated at the beginning of each thing, and that's it. And then the items that you get and the things like that, it feels more procedurally generated than like Vampire Survivors, where I know what the waves are in that one. The only reason I don't like Bounty of One, though, I will admit that, well, there's two reasons. The main reason is I don't like that I have to stop to attack. Like, that is just so different to why I enjoy Vampire Survivors, which is just keep moving and hopefully you'll survive.
Yeah,
So
no, well, but you got to remember that for the horde for the horde like games that these are, like that is what Vampire Survivors brings to the table.
yeah,
Is that constant attacking that you're doing in Vampire Survivors? That's part of the secret sauce that makes Vampire Survivors Vampire Survivors. Because like you look at Nuclear Throne, you look at Bounty of One, you look at what's the other, Brotato, like all of that sort of stuff, and like they have power-ups. Like eventually in like Bounty One, I think there are power-ups that will attack while you move, like and that sort of stuff. And same for Brotato. Like there is stuff where you can get to where you can do that, but it's not, you're right, it's not built in that's exactly what's happening in those at all times. That is part of what makes Vampire Survivors special. So like if you're looking for that in other ones of these horde,
see, I didn't realize that. I thought that because I also did like Mystic Bell or something like that. Like the other two ones that I had tried demos of were the same sort of Vampire Survivors you're always attacking.
I mean, there's probably a lot of people out there that are chasing Vampire Survivors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's what I thought that Bounty of One was, because we kept having it in the same breath. So that whole thing is different. It doesn't mean the fact that I haven't like adapted to it, but it is like, if I had to point at it, it's like I don't like that it's you need to stop to attack. Because when you get real hordy and there's just a bunch of stuff everywhere, I find it difficult. But then by that time, I've built my character up and I'm having a good time. The other thing I don't like is the hit point system in Bounty of One, where you have hearts and it is literally just hits that you can take. But where that really becomes an issue for me is how the infamy level works. So it's like the heat from Hades is the one that whenever I've had this conversation with other people makes them go, oh, I understand. Because at infamy level 15, everything does 3 damage to you. So basically it's one hit, one kill.
Yep.
And I mean, I've gotten to the Grim Reaper on infamy level 15, and I'm actually really pissed at how I died because he had so little health left, and I just made a stupid mistake after playing flawlessly.
Yeah, I'm on infamy level like 21 right now, and it's fucking nuts.
Yeah, it's just I don't. So like those differences, like, and then I went back to Vampire Survivors. I played a bunch of Vampire Survivors this weekend, and I'm like, this is the one that jives with me. Doesn't mean that I'm not gonna complete Bounty of One.
Well, the other thing about Bounty One is I think Bounty One is still technically early access.
It's still technically early access. Yeah, that is the other thing about it, and hopefully more goes to it. Like, it feels, Bounty of One feels small to be at like where it is compared to where Vampire Survivor was. Really, they're not comparable at all. But like the way that people were talking about them, I thought that they were going to be more comparable.
They are the same genre of game. Like it's like comparing a Fuji apple to a Granny Smith. Like they're still both apples, but they still both have their own unique characteristics.
Yeah.
But they are the same literal genre of game.
I guess
so.
I don't know.
They've got a buy-in system for you to buy power-ups that persist.
It's all the characters. The characters are also what makes Vampire Survivor special. Like,
and Bounty of One has 5 characters right now, and they've introduced a new character every couple of months for the 6 months that I've owned the game. So
I haven't seen that yet. I've only owned the game for a month, so maybe 2. I think it's probably 2 months.
So on the character change screen, what did you think they were introducing to you?
What? I mean, I've unlocked. I guess what I mean is I've unlocked all the characters. I've had all the characters unlocked for a while. Like that, so it just feels like
you don't have you're pointing at Vampire Survivors and talking about the very unique special things that make Vampire Survivors so special, and then like you got to understand that's what makes Vampire Survivors so good.
And there's the issue is that to me, though, like Vampire Survivors being my first, that's what I thought those type of games were like. And now I'm realizing slowly playing Bounty of One that like, oh no, Vampire Survivors, those are the ways that it made itself stand out.
Right.
And there's it is. But I mean, like,
That's why it caught on fire when these games have been in existence for years. Like
yeah,
these horde modes have existed in games for forever. But the reason that Vampire Survivors as a pure horde mode game like succeeded in the way that it did is because of these little tweaks and these little elements all over the place. Like people could not believe how many characters were in Vampire Survivors. It was insane. It is insane how much work they have. That it's just one guy, right? Like
yeah. By I believe he has a bit of a team now, but in the beginning,
yeah,
like, I bought it
yeah.
right before he started to have other people who were working on the game, and that's
Yeah.
and I
You're just
yeah.
yeah.
So I got spoiled. I really got spoiled with that being my first experience, and I'll
Yeah.
admit that. I will freely admit that. But yeah, that's the thing I'm doing. I wanted to talk about Game Boy. So you said that you've been playing the Game Boy stuff. Super happy that Game Boy is included with the regular
So
Nintendo Switch Online.
the only thing I haven't checked out yet is a Alone in the Dark. It's the only one I haven't touched yet. It's because the only one I didn't have any nostalgia for.
Right. I mean, the fact that Wario Land 3 is so that game is huge for not just for a Game Boy Color game, as a game. There is so much content in that game.
In Wario Land?
That
Yeah.
every level is essentially 4 different levels because of how the keys interact and everything.
And powers, right? Don't
Yeah.
you that's yeah, yeah. I was playing that one for a little bit and I was like, this is the one where you get that's not the one where you get like fart power though, right? Like
No,
that's
no,
one of
no.
the later ones.
The way that Wario Land, it's building off of what Wario Land 2 brought to it, which is Wario is basically invincible. Wario, like, when he gets shot with a fireball, he doesn't die. He lights on fire. And then he can use the fact that he's on fire to accomplish his goals.
Right. You can do other things, yeah.
The difference
The
being...
Wario games have always been really wild. Like the different powers and abilities and stuff. They've always been really fun. It's not a franchise that it doesn't get enough airtime for people, and that's a shame because like the ways in which it's so not Mario, but uses the Mario aesthetic, right? Like it uses a lot of the like worlds and concepts and all that sort of stuff from Mario, and then has a completely different game is just wild. And Nintendo does that all the time now, but like this was weird back in the 90s to get a Wario game.
I mean, when Wario Land 2 came out, when Wario Land is the reason I bought a Game Boy. Because I'm like, I get to play as Wario? I want to play as Wario. And the Game Boy Pocket is cheap. And my mother was like, why do you want this? You have a Game Gear. And like, yeah, I'm happy that I was a Game Gear guy, but like it ate batteries. Game Boy Pocket for 2 AAAs. I played Wario Land one day for 12 hours straight. Like, beautiful experience. And then Wario Land 2 comes out and it introduces the whole Wario is invincible aesthetic to the game. But he's actually invincible. Like, he doesn't have a life bar except for in boss fights. So then Wario Land 3, he has the hearts. So you can't just continue to take damage. Though, I think in Wario Land 3, there is legitimately only one area where you can get a game over screen. And that is the final boss. Like, I remember that being something interesting. I was like,
I was dying a lot and it wasn't stopping me. So I don't,
So like you die and it resets your progress, or you go back to the beginning of the level, but you never see a game over. And then the final boss, because that was a trivia in something is there a game over screen in Wario Land 3? And it's only if you die to the final boss, you get a game over screen.
Man,
that game, I love that game. So that's exciting.
The Game Boy stuff also reaffirmed my just intense dislike of the Game & Watch series.
The Game & Watch gallery things were interesting. They were cheaper when they came out. They were like $20 games. And it was really cool. They came out alongside... I mean, that's a color one, though, right? The 3 that's on there?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
So, like, the first 2 came out alongside the Game Boy Pocket. Maybe, like, right at the time or around it. So, when that switched from, like, the pea soup green to the crisp black and like gray as the palette, it was cool to see them modernized for that handheld system. The same way that like Donkey Kong 94 modernized Donkey Kong, which if Donkey Kong 94 is not put on the Game Boy stuff, that'll be the biggest missed opportunity for the Switch Game Boy.
Rocky and Bullwinkle for me. They got to put Rocky and Bullwinkle.
They're probably not going to because it's a licensed game. They at least own Donkey Kong 94. Have you ever played Donkey Kong 94?
Yeah, man. When we had a Game Boy, we had pretty much every iteration of the Game Boy and all of the little games because they were the cheapest ones that you could get from like EB Games, like the used stuff all the time. So we had all sorts of we had. That's why it's hard for me to think about Game Boy games that I want that don't run into that problem, right? That you're talking about, where like that'll probably never be up because it was licensed or it was owned by this other company. Is like they put only like 5 games up for the Game Boy, and they're cool, and I'm happy they're there. But like I don't see them ever building a library of really interesting Game Boy games without having to somehow delve into some of the licensed material that they put out.
God, I hope they put the Mega Man ones, because those are not in a collection, the Game Boy Mega Man games, and they're exceptional. Those are such good games. It's weird that Super Mario Land isn't there. It's weird that the first Wario Land isn't there, like that it's just 3. I understand.
This does also give them time to, gives them a catalog to release, right? Like they didn't, yeah.
But it was 30 games, like when the NES stuff. There were so many when the NES stuff came out. And granted, that's because they had just done the Mini, ditto with like the SNES Mini. So I don't know what's happening. But the question that I want to ask you is, the reason why I wanted to bring it up, how has the control been for you?
I mean, it's been okay.
Okay.
Like, I haven't noticed anything that's really upset me in any way.
So Kirby's Dream Land, I beat that.
Mm-hmm.
And Kirby's, I used to speedrun. Like when I did Victory Fest, that was one of the games that I had in my library of quick to clear games, because like you can do that game in 10 minutes if you know it. And there were a lot of times where like phantom button presses, or I would like get stuck inhaling, or like he would just like randomly get a burst of speed, like and that's a game that I know. So I didn't know if that is something that like was unique to me, or if other people, it feels like it might be an emulator issue for whatever they're running the Game Boy games on.
I mean, you like you have it more in your system than I ever will, so like there's a good chance that that sort of stuff might have been happening and I might have just not been picking up on it. I mean, I'll be honest, I still fall back into button mashing on a regular basis in most games. So like so if shit is happening on screen, it has to be pretty big for me to pick up on it. If things like it's part of the reason why I ride their ass about Joy-Con drift as much as I do, is because I'm probably not even picking up on like 80% of the Joy-Con drift that's actually happening. I'm just dealing with the most egregious shit is what I'm seeing. Yeah. And so like I wasn't running into any of that. I played through the majority of Kirby. I ended up bouncing out of Kirby because I was just getting bored. But like I got through the majority of Kirby in about 15 minutes or so. And then I bounced over to Wario Land for a little bit. I've checked out Tetris a ton. Tetris I have been playing like crazy, and that is a game that requires a certain amount of precision when it comes to that sort of stuff. So like I know even like at this point what Joy-Cons in the house I want to use when I play that and which ones I don't because of the drift issues. So I wasn't noticing any issues in that when I had the right controller in my hand.
Yeah. I haven't done Tetris because I mean it's iconic Game Boy Tetris, but after playing NES Tetris, that one has been ruined for me. It's so slow and clunky.
The Game Boy one?
Yeah.
No, yeah, I mean, like,
and that's me.
The level. I just start on level 8, so
yeah, that's one of the ways to do it. I do hope that Tetris DX comes out eventually, the Game Boy Color version of it, because that was cool because it actually had like a battery save and there was a semi-adventure mode. Like I'm excited about it. There are games that I'm excited about, even like Super Mario Brothers Deluxe for the Game Boy Color. That game is such a different spin to Super Mario Brothers, and with the versus stuff, they could have a field day if they brought
do offer online multiplayer when you first start up the Game Boy. Is there anything that would be worth playing that way?
Like I'd play Tetris with you. I would do it right now if my Switch were in the room where I'm recording. But yeah, you can do like the link cable Tetris stuff the way that it was back then in the day. And that's awesome. Because I remember band trips, like the first chair oboist had 2 Game Boys with Tetris and a link cable, and the back of the bus would just be a rotating tournament of people. That was, God, those are memories. Memory unlocked right there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Nintendo,
So-
it was exciting to see what they had this week. It was also disappointing. It seems like it's the eternal struggle.
The
with
eternal
Nintendo.
Nintendo struggle. Yeah. I don't know. I'm excited about Birdo. That's the last thing I did want to talk about.
Yeah.
I'm calling the shot that we're probably going to see Wave 4 of the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe stuff in April. I think that is going to be April, July, December, just like we saw last year.
Yeah. Makes sense.
I think that with Birdo coming, either we're going to see a bunch of characters come with Wave 4, or we're going to see other characters coming, because they've only revealed one of the 4 tracks in Wave 4, and it's Yoshi's Island. So Birdo, weirdly related to Yoshi in the Nintendo, like, canon.
Yeah,
They're
just
like doubles
more-
partners. So
more like in the zeitgeist than anything else. I think it's
Yeah.
more that people relate the two of them more than the story ever relates the two of them. But yeah.
yeah. But I think that, like, if we're getting any of the Donkey Kong Mountain courses, Diddy would be a very obvious choice to put into the game. Or, oh God, I don't want to... I almost gave myself a heart attack from joy. Funky Kong. I would love to play as Funky Kong again.
That's not going to happen, though.
Nah, don't do that to me. But as Sejum pointed out, they're going to have to even out the character selection screen.
Yeah.
So there's probably going to be more characters. So it'd be cool if
How
each
many more
of...
releases do they have? 3?
They have 3 more. April,
And,
like I
and we
said,
know Birdo's coming with one of them, right?
Yeah.
With the first one.
Birdo comes with the one that comes out spring of 2023. So if it's either that, really they need 6 more characters to come out in order to even it out. So if they do 2 characters per
They
wave,
could realign, or they could realign the grid in some way.
True,
And I don't.
right.
But the problem is, I don't think they can do that with 1. I think they'd need a minimum of 4 if I'm doing my math right. But that's just me doing it in my head, so that might not be right. But that could mean, like, it might be a minimum of 3, and in that case, it could be, we get 1 with each release, right? We
Right.
get Birdo this time, we get, say, Diddy Kong the next time, and then the last one is, I don't know, Malo, Gino.
it's not going to be Gino. He's owned by Square Enix. God, me too,
The purple Croc
Kirby.
there from RPG.
It's gonna be
Kirby.
Croc.
Kirby would actually.
Kirby would be cool, especially if he were Kirby. If it did the whole thing from Forbidden Lands.
God. Oh, that would be adorable. Again, I don't know if that's something that they would bother pulling off, but man,
Yeah,
that would have. Oh, man, you got me all excited about that.
that would be really cool. I don't think it's gonna happen. I'm sorry, but it would be very cool if they could pull that off. But yeah, I mean, yeah, go with more Nintendo guest characters. You already have the villagers. You have Link. You throw Kirby in there. Samus would be good. I mean, there's plenty of places to borrow from. I think a lot of
really,
people,
if you want to get into it, like what they need is Captain Falcon.
Yeah.
Because they've got the F-Zero track. So honestly, that, like, Diddy Kong and Captain Falcon are your next 2 options, right? Like that. Then that means every track has a character, right?
I would also say Rob. I think a lot of people would be happy if Rob the robot from the NES came, because he's been a big deal in like 2 other releases that people care
Yeah,
about.
Rob is
So,
cool, but yeah. But I actually, now that I say that and think about it, I do think that is those are your 2. You got Birdo, and then you do Diddy Kong and Captain Falcon, and that'll fill out that roster pretty much perfectly.
That'd be nice. I don't know. Captain Falcon's weird because like then they're acknowledging F-Zero, and I don't know if they want to do that.
They put the track in, so like what more acknowledgement do you need?
People want a new F-Zero game. That's the problem. And I think that, God, it could look so good with like modern graphics.
Hey man, yeah, I hyper speed racing sounds awesome, but
Who knows? It's but yeah, so that's it. I'm excited for it. I'm mostly excited for Birdo because I've been questioning why Birdo isn't in Mario Kart 8 since Mario Kart 8, not just Deluxe. It felt like a weird omission to not have Birdo in the game.
Yeah.
So very happy that is, like, everything else was just kind of extra pudding. I was so happy to see Birdo. But I think that's all I got for this week. Is there anything else that you want to talk about, cover, Sejin?
I'm trying to think through anything too crazy. History of the World Part 2. What's going on? I just discovered this was going on. There's not much to say about that other than, hey, it's happening, which is fucking wild. I really do hope they make a Jews in Space reference, right?
I think they have to. I mean, you don't make it if you're not.
I mean, especially in the era of Jewish space lasers. Like, come on. Like, it's just fucking, it writes itself.
Yeah. I don't know. I was excited. I just remember like some reality show mentioned it. Like he's doing that. And I'm like, that's not really happening. That's got to be a joke. And then I Googled it and I'm like, oh, it's in production. Okay. The big news about it is that it's going to be a 4-night event on Hulu.
Yeah, and
so is it a
cast on it looks crazy.
4-hour fucking movie at the end of the day? Or is that going to be half-hour stuff? So it's 2 hours? I'm excited for it. History, I mean, Mel Brooks is Mel Brooks. You got to get your Mel on. Oh man, now I'm sad. Now rain over me.
The only thing that's really kind of rubbed me the wrong way about the whole thing is that when I went looking to go watch History of the World Part 1, I just really fell down this rabbit hole of his stuff being all over the place again. I thought at some point it had all come together on HBO Max. And there is some stuff still there, but then, there's things that are just straight up not available anywhere. Like, it's impossible to find Silent Movie as a digital copy anymore.
That's all I was going to say is, like, Silent Movie has always been difficult to find.
That's just crazy to me because, like, I grew up with a VHS copy of it on the shelf, and so I watched it a lot. So, like, finding out that it is actually hard to find was weird. History of the World is not available for rent, but you can... not available for rent through Google, sorry, but you can buy it for $15. But if you go and rent it from you can go and rent it from Amazon or something. But then they've got some that are available and some that aren't. I was very excited because I'm 100% sure it was HBO Max. There was a section that was just the Mel Brooks collection, and it was just all of it was just there. And I was like, finally, this is such a good thing to be able to go to all the time. And it's that thing where we now know that these streaming services are never going to be perfect. They never were going to be, but the ways that the rights ended up working out on all of the Mel Brooks stuff is just another example for me of just that the system is just never, there is no system that will ever work.
Yeah. It, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about streaming right now at all. I am so up in the air. It is.
You mentioned that this is a 4-night Hulu event. I don't have Hulu right now. Am I going to get Hulu?
A lot of people don't have Hulu right now. I don't know. What did Hulu do to people? You're the fourth person who told me I don't have Hulu right now. What?
I mean, they just didn't have anything good. So the problem was that a lot of what their material was, people talk about Netflix losing a bunch of stuff because everybody started their own streaming service. They don't realize how much
Hulu.
Hulu got screwed because Hulu's entire plan was based on this is the place you can come to watch the stuff that you could have watched last night on primetime but you didn't have time for. But now everybody lets you just do that on their own service. So Hulu has no hook to it anymore. What is Hulu? What is the special thing that Hulu offers that other services don't anymore? Nothing.
Disney Plus only covers about half of the ABC stuff if they ever take everything. Because what I definitely use Hulu for, I'm doing How I Met Your Father. Judge me. Season 2 has been so good so far.
No judgment here, man.
I know
we were rooting for it to have a good season.
It's very good to just very happy about it.
Season 1 was mediocre, but had so much potential. I think that's a fair way to assess the way that you and I felt about it, and Will, right? There's something here, but it's just not it. This ain't it.
I'm excited to once 10 episodes of How I Met Your Father air. I don't know how you're going to see them. You know how to use the internet. Let's be honest about it. I would like to do a check-in and see how we're feeling about it after 10 more episodes. I don't know if it's going to be the full 20 of season 2 right now, or if they're going to split it up into parts. There's no information about the show.
Specific content isn't enough anymore.
No, exactly.
Can't just be the one that has How I Met Your Father and that be the thing. And that was proven by Seinfeld.
Yeah.
The ways in which Seinfeld was bandied about, Friends was also to an extent, but more than anything Seinfeld. And the promises made by like when Netflix got it, we are going to be your home for Seinfeld now. This is it. This is the Seinfeld hub. Like, and then they lost it, and it didn't move needles nearly as much as people thought it was. Specific content is no longer the key. The types of content you can provide and like the oeuvre, the aesthetic and the atmosphere of what you bring to the table is what's important. The truth is that's what's always been important. It's just that people were trying to find easy ways out. So buying Seinfeld felt like a golden ticket, but proved not to be. But that idea being that like Netflix does have their Netflix original aspect to it, and they have a lot of international appeal.
Yeah.
The big thing that the biggest deals that they've done over the last 10 years have been with Korea and India in like bringing in all of these like other markets of film. So like Netflix still has something that everybody kind of wants in that regard. Like there is something original going on and worth watching at Netflix. Hulu has tried that, but has not nearly been as successful as Netflix. And honestly, they just look like they're just chasing Netflix in that regard. Their real claim to fame was we are the place you can go the next day to catch up on last night's TV. And that was what Hulu was. And that's not necessary anymore because so many other places have their own streaming services.
And my father loves Peacock because he can watch all the Chicagos there. Paramount Plus to be like just everything CBS. So there are some ABCs like The Connors and Abbott
Modern
Elementary.
Family, I think.
Yeah, Modern Family's on there too. But I'm talking like the next day stuff.
Oh, next day.
It is Fox and it is ABC, which are both Disney. And it's kind of the stuff that I think they don't want to put on Disney Plus because something like The Wonder Years, you have to go to Disney Plus for. The new Wonder Years with Don Cheadle.
Even Abbott Elementary, you can watch the old season on Disney, can't you?
I don't know. I go to Disney Plus for like Marvel and those originals. So
yeah, but there's even stuff in that regard because I don't think they do the next day thing on Disney Plus.
They do with the Wonder Years. Like that's why I do know that they do that. It was just weird to me. Because I didn't realize that
HBO Max. That's the other place where Abbott Elementary is.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And that is the old stuff. But Hulu, you can watch on Thursday the episode that aired on Wednesday. Right. And that's, I mean, HBO Max too, like with South Park, I don't know why it's not until noon the next day that South Park is available. That bothers me so much. Like
it's got to be markets. It's all about marketing,
yeah,
man. Because if they put it up right after the American premiere of it and it hasn't come out in other places, it's just not going to get watched in other places. People will just VPN into an American HBO and then just.
But like that was it. That was the whole thing about HBO Max. Like I love that you can watch the stuff that airs on HBO at the same time on HBO Max.
Yeah.
So it's just weird thing where I'm like, I want to watch South Park.
On Hulu is the next day at 12.
No, I mean on HBO Max. South Park specifically is that.
Yeah.
Hulu, it's usually like after, I think the latest I've seen it is after 8 a.m. is it when a show's available.
In that regard, when HBO owns the property, they probably don't give a shit because they probably have run the numbers and it's worth them to just put the damn thing up, right? Also, I don't know how big HBO is outside of America. Whereas Paramount might have different feelings about that. So they may have it in their contract that no, this you need to hold back on releasing the South Park episode until this time the next day.
Well, let me tell you what I do because of that. I go to southparkstudios.com and I watch it there. So they're getting that data from me. They're getting the ad revenue from me. It makes sense.
Yeah.
God, there's too much streaming. You know what? The next time we're going to talk about streaming, we're going to try to avoid talking about streaming next week. But then Magnum PI coming back next Sunday.
Yeah, and I still haven't bitched about my new Chromecast.
Blown away. I'm so excited for Magnum PI to come back. It feels like old timey TV, where like CBS would cancel a show that was being made by NBC, and then NBC would be like, "Yeah, but we're gonna air it." Looking at you, the naked truth. I guess that's the other thing, though, is like Don Belisario with Jag. Jag was an NBC series, and then they cancel it, and CBS is like, yeah, we'll take it. We'll just take it. And then Jag goes on to how many shows have been birthed from Jag? More than from Love American
NCISs
Style.
And,
4 NCISs.
4 NCISs, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
no, there was that one weird NCIS that didn't have anything to do with the other.
no, that was CSI Cyber. You're thinking of
Oh, right,
CSI
right, right, right.
Cyber. I understand why though. CI and S are right there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, but this goes down to the fact that all of this shit that people say about streaming services and about how there's too many of them and all of this shit that's going on, it's like, it's just TV. This has been the way the TV has been, and all we did was just move it to the internet.
The,
So, like,
yeah, the most
it was supposed to save us from what was going on TV, but we didn't, you know. I mean, honestly, it's because of things like Hulu. Hulu basically started getting a little too big for its britches. Netflix too. Like they started getting a little too big for their britches, probably pissed off the wrong people in the wrong rooms, and now we're back to this.
the most disappointing thing about the whole events of what's happened online is that they had the opportunity to be better than television and how television was being poorly run, and at the end of the day they just fell into those same patterns, which is really interesting when you think about the AI we were talking about before and patterns. Our society, if it's anything, is a series of the same patterns that we
If you
fall
don't
into.
doubt that what's going on at HBO Max right now is at the behest of LG Rhythm, you just weren't paying attention. When Space Jam tried to tell us what was going to happen,
That movie weirdly becomes prophetic years later. Gross. F off, Space Jam: A New Legacy. But thank you for trying. I'm sorry that no one heeded your warning. Maybe you shouldn't have made it the most likable man in the room, Don Cheadle, as the face of it.
yeah, everybody just kind of welcomed him with open arms. Now here we are.
And then, yeah, you gave me shivers, CJ. You're like Ed Sheeran or something. I also had some, but I lost it because you brought
Modern
up that.
streaming woes, all Don Cheadle's fault.
Oh, don't do that to Don Cheadle. He's already shouldering a lot of blame.
Cheadle.
No, Space Jam: A New Legacy did that to Don Cheadle. There's the legacy of Space Jam.
That's the new legacy.
Is that Don Cheadle? We're all going to blame Don Cheadle. Oh, the other thing is, we don't need a That 50s show. You want to watch That 50s show? It's called Happy Days.
It's called Leave It to Beaver. It's called
I mean, it's called Happy. So because of that 90s show, we can talk about that at greater length later, not when we're at the wind down of an episode. I've gone back and started watching that 70s show. And I think it's the Thanksgiving episode, they start, hinting that Red's mom is going to come for the episode. And I'm like, it would be cool if Red's mom were played by Marion Ross, who played Richie Cunningham's mom in Happy Days. And then the next episode is freaking Marion Ross. And my mom was so mad at me because she's like, you fucking knew. That's the only reason you said it. I'm like, I swear I didn't know. I was just thinking about the fact that, like, the 70s show is to the 90s what Happy Days was to the 70s. So it would just be really cool if that's what they did. I mean, his name is Red. I think Red Foreman might be Richie Cunningham, Sejan. This is my theory.
He just grows up and gets real grumpy.
He kind of looks like Clint Howard. Think about it.
I mean, he kind of looks like Ron Howard. Have you seen Ron Howard without a baseball cap on?
That's true. No, I mean, just the one time. Those are rarer than Sasquatch photos. And I mean, like, Sasquatch in frame.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, Red Foreman, and people called Richie Cunningham Red. Fonzie called him Red a bunch of times.
I think you just unlocked a very deep secret here, Dad.
Yeah, I mean, so everybody like, there should be a That 50s show. It kind of already exists. They kind of did everything that they could with that 70s show to make you feel that way. I don't know. But there we are. There's everything with streaming. If you'd like to comment to D3VoN or 5 Edition John, you can find us on Twitter at The Say Report. Specifically if you're looking for Sejan, because he's off of Twitter, because Twitter's a cult, right? And I certainly felt that this morning.
Elon said there were already too many bots on Twitter, so I had to go. 5E John bot had to go. Sorry.
Fair. That's fair. All right. You were
I
only.
just don't know why Elon's still allowed on there.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, there we go. We told at least one joke this week. I can rest easy.
Do you want to tell the people how to get in touch with me?
Oh, is that what we're doing now?
That's
yeah,
that. We're at the one.
At Devin D. Decker on Twitter because he's still there. The scab.
Someone has to be there. Someone has to be there to, categorize and note the downfall of that platform. This morning I woke up to, in my For You section, a thread. Every tweet was from one thread, and it was not in proper order. I had no idea how it was like Rashomon.
Oh my God! Fucking, we're not. Look. There's enough people out there that are reporting on the downfall of Twitter, and it's why we have kind of avoided it. Besides our own personal, just to give you guys a heads up about where we are personally on it.
Yeah.
I don't know. At some point, we will probably have to talk about it all. But man, there's enough other people out there that are smarter than us talking about it.
There's a reason why Sejin left, but I don't mind seeing it. But this morning was that first time where I'm like, it might be time.
It might be. This might be broken.
But until that time comes, let's send this one over to Will to bring us home. You guys enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy the big game. Way to go, Kansas City Chiefs.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devin Decker and Stephen Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.